Two Davids Walk Into a Bar was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
If I didn't have puke breath, I'd kiss you.
Forget anything else. Remember, Brogan, you're out of her life.
Figure that's up to her. You're not going to control us forever. Believe me.
Good evening. This is David Anderson, and this is Two Davids Walk Into a Bar. I'm here with Mr. David Lawler. How are you doing, Mr. Lawler?
Hello, Mr. Anderson. How are you?
Hello, I am well. And with us today is a special guest, Mr. John Froelich. How are you doing today?
Peachy Keen Jelly Bean, about 2 beers in, so ready to rock this.
Yeah, we're nice and loose. Maybe you need your peanuts and a towel so you can have the full hyperspace travel.
Beer nuts and a towel, and we're good to go.
Okay. Well, and, this is our final episode for this video series.
Yeah.
We've only had one other guest, right? It was Gino.
It was Gino. We've done other shows. We did a show with Chris Cooling. And,
now I did not have a picture of Mr. Froelich, so I used my imagination. And this picture will be showing up every time Mr. Froelich talks.
Oh,
and
that works definitely because I'm a diehard Simpsons fan.
So I figured, because I was thinking about it, it just hit me because there was an episode of The Simpsons, the 180th Spectacular, where they're talking about Matt Groening, the animator, and they show him, and it just says Groening, and he flips out when the camera shows him.
Get out of my office.
So this is the episode where we're going to be talking about all the stuff that we couldn't get to before in this enormous series. This was how many episodes? 14 episodes, I want to say.
I've lost track of all the things we've done, and they've all been great. Some of them have been super excellent, I think.
My favorite one actually was like the last one you did when you guys did the miners, like Vestron and Live.
Yeah.
And, that was my favorite one because I'm a B-movie fan at heart, and like those were the best labels, in my opinion.
That was my favorite episode because of my editing. I edited my ass off with that one.
Yeah, he always, the people in the audience, sometimes, we have like sort of a relationship outside the show. And, sometimes Mr. Lawler will get in scuffles with different Facebook people and weird stuff goes on and he's very frustrated. And when he's pissed off, he does his best work.
This show would not be possible if not for the enormous contributions, the images, the clips from content creators. Nearly everything you see on our shows is taken from the internet and from YouTube. It's all freely available, which really makes me wonder why YouTube blocks some of our content when it's discovered on YouTube in the first place. But I have a list that I just want to read off, like a partial list of the people that I got clips from, and I think they should be acknowledged in the groups, the various groups. VHScollector.com. It's a great site. I love it. I wrote for it. I wrote an article for it a while back. The guy who runs it, this man named Paul, very nice man. He's going through some problems right now because he's been going in and out of illness, so he hasn't been able to update it as much as possible. Slasher Film Junkie, Ryan Holman, Raphael Jones, James the Logo Man. All the logos, most of the logos that you see on the show that I put into the show, they tend to come from him. He collects logos. He's one of these wonderful people at YouTube who just collects video logos from old videotapes. Weird Paul, who is also a friend of the show, friend of VHS Rewind, where I also work, and Logic Smash, Charles Loftus, Joe Bob Briggs himself. He puts clips up all the time.
Nice.
The Video Man, Utter Fright, Expect the Unexpected, the Trauma Universe. Also, they put their stuff up, and they've never given me a hard time about anything. Derek Montoya, Blaine Young, and the Blam Entertainment Group. They have this site devoted exclusively to Disco Vision. So a lot of the information that we've gotten is from Blaine Young. And Chris Hassler at VHS Rewind, Gino Cuddy, of course.
I ended up discovering this series, like, in case anyone doesn't know, I am a longtime listener ever since the first episode was released, and I thought it was probably one of the most informative video history compilations that I've ever listened to. And I always looked forward to every single episode because the wealth of knowledge and information that you guys give out is just astoundingly good.
Well, thank you. You're one of our like 30 people that actually will watch our clips and watch our things. But it's great that we have at least one of our fans. I just hope more people will get into it. I'm hoping it becomes viral, but I'm always afraid if it becomes too big, they'll shut us down.
Yeah.
They'll be like, they'll notice, you know?
Yeah, we exist in obscurity and anonymity. I want to say congratulations are in order for John. He his wife just had a daughter.
Yep.
And he is a father for the third time.
Oh yeah, and it's a load of fun and a load of laughs, a little stressful, but
it's a load of diapers, is what it is.
Oh God, it's a load of shit. It is a lot of it too. But you know, it's still fun having 3 kids running around the house and having to pick up after every single one of them. You know, but it's still fun. It's being a parent.
Yes, it is. Now, the first thing I wanted to mention, I cannot believe I forgot to do this, but I did manage to correct myself for the episode that just came out. In my little montage of all the beautiful women of low budget video, I forgot 2 women, and I totally forgot one that I'm going to mention. But I forgot Barbara Crampton, so I put her at the beginning of the episode.
Oh yeah.
I put her in there, and then I add a little Tommy Wiseau because I just had it in my head because I was reading the book, The Disaster Artist, and watching The Room, because I'm preparing for an Extreme Cinema episode where I have to do that. So I was like, it would be weird and awesome if I could just put, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa." While he's
Or oh hi Mark.
Oh hi Mark.
I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh hi Mark.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Bullshit.
The okay, and the other one I totally missed is somebody I actually know personally, Debbie Rochon, who was in a bunch of movies, the Alien Agenda movies for Brimstone Entertainment. I also knew Kevin Lindemuth, and she, I had sent her a long time ago. I was working on a movie called Vortex, and I sent her the script for it, and she read it, and she told me that she cried. She really wanted to be in the movie, but I really couldn't get because I didn't have any money, and she SAG, so it was I was a little bit let down by that, but. Again, Debbie Rochon, this one's for you. I love you, baby.
And we all loved you in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, what a wonderful movie. Actually, what we were talking about that, right? James Gunn wrote that.
Yep, James Gunn wrote, Lloyd Kaufman directed. Sean Gunn was in that as well.
Yes. Now, speaking of Barbara Crampton, I did want to talk a little bit about this, and it was something I don't know why I didn't think about it. I guess we talk about so much on this show that you forget lots of things. They just fall out of your brain, but then you pick them up again because you can see them. Now, when I worked at Blockbuster, we got many, many copies of Full Moon movies. Now, Full Moon being a subsidiary of Paramount, or basically getting their distribution from Paramount, and Blockbuster being owned by Viacom, which also owned Paramount. You can put 2 and 2 together and see that Charles Band was getting enormous exposure at Blockbuster. I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up because we would see many, many copies. I mean, like if you got like I don't know, if you got like 40 copies of Con Air, then you would be sure to get at least 10 copies of a movie like Head of the Family or Castle Freak.
Well, and don't forget all the multiple Puppet Master movies that.
We had a whole wall.
Full Moon. I mean, when you see Puppet Master, I mean that was those first few Puppet Masters were pretty good. I mean, they were good schlock.
The first 5, especially, like those are like the main 5. Anything after that is kind of bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between it already being a bad movie and then just bad for bad's sake. And I cannot get past part 5.
The one thing, there's a certain standard, there's a quality to Charles Band's work, especially with Full Moon. He got good. It seemed like he got really good production values.
Well, remember when I think there was this movie, and it looked like they reused something from that movie. I think it was called Eliminators or something, where it was this movie called Mandroid.
Yeah,
Mandroid. Yep.
Yeah, and it looked like they just sort of reused that sort of Mandroid, whatever that thing was that they had in that movie, and then just sort of like reused it and repurposed it. I thought it was like a sequel, but I realized no, it's just some crappy. It's kind of like the same thing he did in that movie, The Dungeon Master. We had a lot of leftover stuff from Metal Storm, and they just sort of made another movie with it.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was reading. Okay, when I was reading The Disaster Artist, Greg Sestero was in a Puppet Master movie. His first and really kind of only major job he ever got was for a movie called Retro Puppet Master, where he played a young Andre Toulon.
Oh, wow.
And that was like his only gig. He really couldn't get any gigs after that because, you know, we got to face it, Sestero's not a good actor. He's a good-looking guy. He's just not a good actor. He could speak French, and he could do, like, a French accent, and they were, like, really impressed with the fact that he could do a French accent. So they shot the movie in Hungary. He was there for weeks. They got paid, you know. And it was done, you know, they always did have very good production values. Charles Band, he's a very talented guy, very talented filmmaker. I've always enjoyed his work. It's just his practices as a businessman really turned me off.
His practices are very evil. I was actually telling a story to David Anderson last night about an experience that a friend of mine dealt with Charles Band. Charles Band basically was at a convention several years back, and a fan had presented him with like a custom statue from one of his films. I couldn't tell you which film it was. Mm-hmm. Charles Band appreciated it, but then come to find out, Charles Band took this statue, repurposed it, made multiple copies, and sold it on his Full Moon store.
Oh, you are not supposed to do that. That is intellectual property.
Exactly. Like,
although Band's argument,
it goes back to the big box VHS you were talking about,
right?
On how, you know, he found X amount of copies in a warehouse someplace, and they're legitimate, and then it turns out they were fake.
They were just very nice scans, yeah.
You know, the thing about Charlie Band is, like, you were talking about how all the B movie filmmakers are a tight knit group, how they're all nice guys in general.
Yeah.
You know, how they all look out for one another. The thing about Charlie is that he's always been money hungry.
He's just kind of I don't know. He's like maybe he's like an evil Roger Corman or something, something along those lines.
That is the best way to do it. And I also told David Anderson this, Mr. Lawler. I don't know if you know this. Did you ever hear of a music group called The Calling?
The Calling, I kind of have, yeah. It sounds familiar.
They were a one-hit wonder band. They had a really big hit. It was called Wherever You Will Go. You come to find out a couple of years later, the lead singer of that group is Charlie Band's son.
Oh, really?
Because because he had so many movies in the can, and like he had no money to distribute them, and then he just sold them off to other film companies. Like Prison, he sold off to New World, along with Ghost Town. He sold those to New World Entertainment, and that was right before New World was starting to crumble. He finished Spellcaster, which was like finished in the 80s, and it didn't even see a release until the early 90s through Columbia TriStar.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm looking at the video right now because David sent me a link.
Yes.
And I do know this song because they play a Muzak version of it at the Stop and Shop where I go.
Oh, there you go.
And they always seem to play it. They play that, and they play one other song.
Was if I'm not mistaken, Robot Jocks, that was originally an Empire, right?
Yep, that was Empire in-house production. Same thing. Studio folded. He sold the rights off to Sony.
That's funny.
The only thing I'm still bummed out with the movie Arena, how after all these years, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, that is like the only film where he has lost the elements to. He can't find them.
Arena.
It's basically Rocky in space, and I remember that movie. I remember that being on HBO like in '92 or something. That's what I remember from.
Oh.
I remember when I rented Robot Jocks in the '90s. There was a trailer for Arena on the Robot Jocks VHS.
What's that? That was also a kind of a franchise, right? The robot movies.
Yeah, because the Robot Jocks was the first one, and then the sequel, the unofficial sequel, was on Full Moon. It was Crash and Burn.
But
I remember that one too.
There was another one called Robot Wars, right?
Yeah, that one was kind of unrelated.
With Barbara Crampton, with my girl.
Well, related in that sense, yeah. You got Barbara Crampton in it, so there you go.
God, she's so wonderful. I love her. I love her in everything she's in.
Man, you know what? The one thing about her, she was a B-movie actress, but out of all the B-movie actresses, she gave her best with every performance.
That's true.
And you can never take that away from her.
And the funny thing, her first gig is basically, cook holding Greg Wasson and Body Double.
The one I didn't know about until last year, she was also in Fraternity Vacation.
I do know. I remember that because that was a cable movie.
Pausing it, I still have the recorded off of HBO tape of that for posterity.
I actually have the Star Maker VHS of
Ooh.
Fraternity Vacation, and I got the
Oh,
I
man.
do have the Anchor Bay
Starmaker.
DVD of Fraternity Vacation.
Yeah, it's probably way better because it was a New World movie, I believe.
Yep, that was New World, right when they started doing their own stuff before they had other distributors.
What do we know, since you brought it up, and I should have mentioned it, Starmaker. What the hell do we know about Starmaker Video? Because I remember that company.
Is that an LP?
Nope, that was EP. That was
EP. Oh, crap.
Well, here's what happened with Starmaker. This is me going to Kmart in the early 90s, so you got to trust me on this one. So after New World Video went belly up, they ended up selling all the rights to Lakeshore Entertainment. Lakeshore Entertainment, or at least they have the rights now. Starmaker was a budget video company. It was Starmaker RNG Video, and they basically held complete distribution rights for every single New World Video title. Like, the whole big thing was you go to Kmart and you would see tons of Starmaker tapes at Kmart, and like you said, they were all in EP mode.
Oh.
Now, occasionally, you would catch an SP recording of a Starmaker tape, and that's when a video store ordered it, and they catered to video stores, and they gave them a standard play copy.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I want to send you guys the photo, but I will later so you can use it in the episode. I found a copy of Heather's on Starmaker, and it's actually an SP tape. And the other interesting fact is that Starmaker merged with Video Treasures to form Anchor Bay.
Ah, yes. That's our missing element.
They wanted to merge the libraries because, Video Treasures, they started out with pretty much the media library.
My next, this is, I cannot believe, this is another subject I can't believe I forgot, but for a very brief time, I guess, Blockbuster had its own video distribution, so they released a few titles on video, namely Halloween, the Michael Caine movie Zulu, and a documentary on the Beatles called A Day in the Life. And we did sell these, but for the most part, we checked. I mean, I sent a picture of a tape to David, and we both confirmed that they were SP. They were very cheap, though. They were not manufactured very well, because when I worked at the store, we got constant returns because the tapes were damaged, and damaged like in the physical sense, where the cases were messed up, or the little plastic tab or the tray was broken or something like that. And looking at the back of the box, I can see that there's no other company in connection with Blockbuster, so it was just them releasing it themselves.
Yeah, I remember seeing those in Blockbuster for $10. Anytime I see those all the time in the thrift store, and I'm a big Halloween fan. I always leave them on the shelf.
You would have, at the store, you would have like a whole bay loaded with, I guess, what they called discount movies or something like that, or good values, good bargains, something like that. But they weren't, like, we would have like two bins. One would be like these good bargains that were new movies still in their shrink wrap for sale, and then we would have our previously viewed movies. So you would go, but most of the time those things would be returned.
I can attest to that too, because the one fact I don't think I ever told either one of you guys, I used to work for Blockbuster.
So you're a fellow Blockbuster brother.
I'm a fellow Blockbuster brother.
I would go to Blockbuster, so that's all I have to say about that.
David would be the one pestering us.
I'd be the one basically just looking for, okay, do you have Phantasm 3 yet? Do you
and you'd usually get some dead-eyed CSR who didn't know what the hell you were talking about, because most of the time the people they hired had no knowledge of movies, Yeah. I guess except for me and John. Or my wife. I met my wife at Blockbuster. She quit and got a real job, and then we got married. But I was a manager at Blockbuster for a few years as well. So since we're talking about Blockbuster a little bit, I do want to. This is still something I firmly believe, and I keep seeing it in a lot of the groups that I'm still involved in. There's a lot of hatred for Blockbuster because they say Blockbuster killed the mom and pop store. I don't know if I agree with this, because to me, I didn't see it, if you truly supported your mom and pop store, you would go to your mom and pop store. If you couldn't find something at your mom and pop store because it was out, because they only had like one or two copies, then you could go to Blockbuster and get it. Either way, these things don't really affect the mom and pop store. I've worked for both. I've worked for mom and pop stores, and I've worked for Blockbuster. We got more business at Blockbuster because it was a bigger store with a bigger selection, and also the only video store in the area. It wasn't like our Blockbuster was, pissing in somebody else's pool. And the other store that I worked at, which was on the Upper West Side. I mean, we did very well, but the people who ran it just didn't know how to run a business. They ran it straight into the ground, and they spent way too much money because it was New York real estate, and that costs a lot of money. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with the mass consensus that Blockbuster killed video or the video store in general. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, in my area, we had Blockbuster, we had the Warehouse, we had Pop and Go, we had down the street. I had sort of more. It's called Video World. It was more sort of a local thing. We had, and then I had one on the corner, the First Video. I mean, we had a lot of video stores, and I'm just in regular, boring suburbia. Lots of different video stores, and it kind of became like, well, I'd start at one, and then if they didn't have it, I'd try another one.
Right.
Like, if they didn't have, like, oh, you don't have Back to the Future Part 2? Well, okay, here, I'll go down to Blockbuster. They got it there. It's more expensive to rent it there, but I'd basically go where it was cheapest and start there, and then if I had to go to and then eventually, as the years went on, like, they stopped, like, being stores that I would go to. Like, they kind of started closing a few of them. Mm-hmm. And then I was just like, I'm lazy. I'm just going to Blockbuster because I know they'll have it. And eventually it became, I go to Blockbuster because I know that they will have a copy. If I wait a week, I can go in. Even if it's not on the shelf, I can be the annoying person on the side where they're kind of going through the ones that are about to be put up. You know how it was. It's like they'd put them out on the counter before they would put them out on the shelf.
Right.
So I would go on the counter and I'd be like, oh, it's there. Okay, I'll take it. And then that's how I would do it.
Well, in my case, I never actually rented from Blockbuster growing up. We had 3 video stores in my town, and I would go to them all the time. Like, we had a store called KNS Video, and then my parents got into a heated discussion with the owner, and they just quit going there. I don't know why. I loved going there, but we just quit going there. We had another store called Lion Video, and that was where I went all the time. I always say that the summer of 1997 was my education in horror films because it was a year before I could start working a summer job. I was only 14 at the time, and I would get an allowance every week, and literally every day I would ride my bike up to the video store and I would rent like B movie after B movie after B movie.
Right.
And the best part is, like you said about copy protection, all these old B movie titles never had copy protection.
Right.
So I always daisy chained 2 VCRs together, and I was dubbing tapes left and right.
Oh man, I did that so much. So much.
And then we also had another video store right close to me called Video Village, which I'm sorry to say they are getting ready to close their doors right now. They've actually been around 20 years.
Well, yeah. Well, the fact that they're still around is a miracle.
Oh yeah, the fact that they were still around was a straight up miracle. But now, with the advent of streaming and all this, it's killed them for the most part, and they're closing up shop. And they had a good run. They had a very good run. But,
Did you see the video that recently was posted of the Blockbuster in Alaska?
Yep, and the whole reason they still exist is because internet's an arm and a leg out there, and they can't afford to do streaming.
Right, so they're still probably making really good money, and a lot of people are going there.
Well, we actually have a video store in Park Forest. Family Video. Family Video's still around. And they're never going.
Weren't you telling me about how, as much as everybody loves Blu-ray, DVD is still kind of where it's at as far as sales?
Oh yeah, like I'll tell you that right now. I know Mr. Anderson knows this, but Mr. Lawler, I actually work for Amazon.
Right.
And I work in the packing department. I will tell you right now, any movie that I have gotten, I have literally only held in my hand 6 Blu-rays. Every movie that I have gotten is DVD.
People are probably capitalizing on the much lower cost the DVDs are now.
I mean,
and also they're not buying the Blu-ray players, or maybe they don't quite have the Blu-ray players, because how long has Blu-ray been around? And
10 years.
10 years. 10 plus.
10 plus.
But how long has Blu-ray been around where it's been actually economical? I only noticed.
Yeah, that's true.
7.
It was probably, if you want to get technical, it was economically viable for about 5 years, from anywhere between 2007 to 2012.
Well, this is what I remember. I think the first Blu-ray player I bought, I still have, actually, it still works, and I think it cost over $200 at the time.
Yeah, mine too. I bought one in 2009. I bought one in like April 2009. It cost me $220, and it had the early sort of streaming. It had sort of early streaming on it, sort of. It just has Netflix. But it's also, like you said, it's like your older player where it has the old style video outputs.
Yeah, it actually has the
outputs.
The RCA.
You
can
hook it
directly into an old style TV with no problem.
Which is what we do in the bedroom. We have our tube television. But the first Blu-ray that I bought, Sony, I think, 2010, and it was over. I think it might have been a present, actually. I don't even think I spent money on it. But then I bought a new Blu-ray player that I wanted to have for the living room for our big TV, and that one cost about $79, and they're going down even more now.
Yeah, so. They're dropping down like crazy. I mean, my first one was a PlayStation 3, which I got in 2008. First Blu-ray I ever bought was Blade Runner. I just like, I mean, along with you guys, I prefer my physical media, and it will always be that way. I mean, I collect Laserdiscs, for God's sake, you know.
I wondered if you guys picked up on this particular observation I had, is that these Blu-rays are actually going down dramatically in price. I picked up several movies for like I don't know, like $20. I like four or five Blu-rays.
Yeah, older catalog titles are like $5-6.
Even this Wolf and Warner archive title that I bought was $6, and it brand new from Amazon. I buy everything from Amazon.
Really? So. The archive version of Wolfen was only $6?
Yeah, it was only $6.
Sometimes things go on super sale. Like I just happened to I recently bought Wonder Woman because it went on sale. It was only $14.99.
Oh, that's
and it's like a deluxe edition. So,
and not to mention,
I'm a DC whore, so I have to. Anytime a DC film comes out, I get the digibook from Target.
Oh, cool.
So I've got Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman, and Wonder Woman all in digibook format.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, you know what? I told you guys this last night. Batman vs Superman, while it was a flawed film, its theatrical version should have never been released. It should have been the director's cut.
Yeah, I liked it. I have that too. That was another one that went on sale for $15 and I got it. I actually like it, but it's a lot of it is because it's one of my few Blu-rays that actually has like Dolby Atmos on it, and I can like test it out.
We're segueing so effortlessly into the next subject because we can just keep going. Okay, now I wanted to bitch a little bit about Sony on-demand Blu-rays, and I know John had something to say about that too because we talked about it for a little bit. I don't understand this. We talked about it too. They're putting out these on-demand Blu-rays, which are like BR, basically.
They're BD25.
Yeah, BD25.
BDR, BD25s.
And they're dying after like all these people are complaining about them. They're dying after 3 plays. You can't get more than 3 plays.
Am I to assume it's basically kind of like, because they used to make DVD recorders, and I assume it's basically like they have a Blu-ray recorder and then they record it as necessary, but it's not like a properly stamped disc. And there's probably error messages up the yin yang.
It's like if you were to get something from the Warner Archive, like how Warner Archive when they press DVDs, when they give you a DVD, it's burned, but when they give you a Blu-ray, it's actually factory pressed. Okay, Sony is giving you burned DVDs, and it's ridiculous because the price they charge. They want $25 for a burned copy of Real Genius. And they honestly think people are going to spend that kind of money. I want $25 for something I could make myself in my Blu-ray burner.
I mean, a lot of these movies do pop up on Netflix, Amazon, a lot, so you can just kind of wait.
I mean, I'm sorry, I have Real Genius on DVD, and I would rather watch it on DVD over a burned Blu-ray. I'm sorry.
That's
just
true.
my opinion.
Oh, yeah, going back to the point you were making before about how DVDs are still selling like hotcakes, as it were. A lot of that could be because of computers. I find it's very difficult. I can't really watch a Blu-ray when I'm on the computer, but I can watch a DVD. I can just pop it in. I don't have that's something I want for Christmas. Both of you take note of that. I want an external Blu-ray player for my computer just so I can pop in Blu-rays. But
we'll get a Kickstarter going for you.
Okay, I do want to make a correction. It turns out I was wrong about a Charter Video title. The trailer that appeared on the Crime Wave tape was The Quest, starring Henry Thomas, not The Wizard. And I think
I was
right.
The reason is that both movies are very similar. And
are they?
Yes, they're very
The Quest
similar.
is about a kid he's like an American kid in the Australian outback with a weird thing. He thinks it's a monster, but it's a crane trapped in the water or something. The Wizard is about video games.
But it's like 2 kids involved in an adventure, and the trailers are very similar with similar sounding music. That's why I got them confused. Next up, what?
Well, I was going to say before we segue, Sony is actually seeing the error in their ways.
Okay, that's good.
Because they've I don't know if you guys know, 976 Evil recently got released on Blu-ray.
976 Evil, directed by Robert Englund.
Robert Englund. It's got Evil Ed from
Stephen Jeffries.
Stephen Jeffries, yeah.
And if I could say, the sequel was directed by our pal Jim Wynorski.
Jim Wynorski. Yep, Jim Wynorski.
Which I said I just saw a documentary about Jim Wynorski. It's fantastic. I sent David the link, but it's called Papatopoulos.
Oh, jeez.
It's a great documentary.
I'm just glad Sony's been wising up and listening to their customers, because 976 Evil easily could have been a BDR title, but I think the fans said, you know what, don't do it. You know, do what Shout Factory, do what Arrow's doing, do what Lionsgate's doing. Release like this special edition. See how it's going to go. If it sells, hey, you can do more titles.
They could if they have the capability to do that. If they have archivists, if they do the work that like Shout Factory, Scream Factory does, or these companies that are Criterion also, what you would ordinarily do, like back in the days of Laserdisc, was you would license your title to that company, then they do all the work, put it out, you get a percentage of the profit. But they do all the work.
Isn't it kind of getting to like the Laserdisc level of like amounts pressed? Like there were these special editions, and there'd be like 2,500 copies, 5,000 copies, and then they would.
Well, that's when Sony licenses out to Twilight Time. They only do like the 3,000 or 5,000 copies, like Fright Night. When they licensed that out to Twilight Time, they only did 3,000 of the first run, and then they did a second run, which was 5,000.
In principle, I really like what Twilight Time is doing, but they're charging too much money, I think.
They charge way too much money, but you know what? You catch a sale. Like I wanted 10 to Midnight, which is like my honest to goodness favorite Charles Bronson movie of all time.
You can't punish me for being sick.
I wasn't gonna spend $30 on this movie. I mean, I love 10 to Midnight, but I don't love it for $30.
Mm-hmm.
But you wait until Christmas, you wait until they do a sale, and then 10 to Midnight was only $15. I said, okay, I'm comfortable with $15. I can spend that money, and then you can put a couple more titles in the cart. Like I got Mind Warp. It was only like $7.99. I figured that was good, and I also got The Mechanic.
I was looking, I really wanted a copy of Bell Book and Candle, the Kim Novak, Jimmy Stewart movie, and it was available on Twilight Time Blu-ray, but it was like $50, and I was just like, I don't know if I didn't have any money at the time, and I don't even know if I have money for that now, you know?
I can understand where they go with it because, you got to remember, home video is people say it's dying. I don't think it's dying. It's just evolving.
I don't think so.
Home video is evolving. It's evolved so much.
It's gotten. We don't go to a video store anymore and get movies. We don't put that much thought into it. So now we rely on descriptions. A lot of times that don't really cover it. They don't do the descriptions very well. And then I guess it's kind of like what David was saying, I think, in the previous episode, that there's just so much out there that so much gets buried.
Exactly. I mean, the way I see it is streaming is for your mainstream moviegoer, a person who likes the big Hollywood productions. Movies like that, they can be seen on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. But for people like us who want to dig deep into catalog titles that possibly may never get a release, like, a streaming release, we're resorting to buying a physical copy of it just so we can watch it.
It's kind of interesting. I think it's streaming, say your Netflix, your Amazon, sometimes even maybe HD cable. That's the replacement for the video store experience, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, I'll wait for it to be on Netflix, and it's on Netflix, and you have like a year and a half to watch it while it's on Netflix. And it's easy. You don't even have to go to a video store. Or if you're even lazier, you can just do it, like, say, go on like Vudu and just like rent it for $5-6 in full HD. I mean, that's your replacement for going to the video store. My
big problem with that is that you can't really depend on it anymore because this is all temporary. It all seems temporary. Like a movie that's on Netflix last year is not on Netflix this year. There's no way to find it. It's like it disappears completely.
But you can usually, if it's on Amazon, you can usually rent. If it's on Amazon, you can usually rent it. Like it's pretty much going to be there forever. It's to rent anyway.
Well, I remember The Keep was on Netflix. And it's no longer Netflix in America.
So there's nothing you can rely on. There's nothing you can depend on to be there all the time because these rights change hand in hand, and they do it in the internet has been extremely frustrating with this as well because we've had situations where our videos are taken down because the rights are no longer there to use the music. Like for my Twilight Zone podcast, I use a Def Leppard song. It was perfectly fine. And then they block it everywhere because it's changed, because the rule changes. And they do this. They did something with our Paramount episode for a while. We couldn't figure out what the hell happened.
It went out and then it came back.
Yeah, it was just like, they take it away or they bring it back and they don't tell you. And they really need to tell the people who provide the content, because we are the people, maybe not me and David specifically, but we are the people that bring
Look,
people to YouTube.
We're a couple of scrappy kids trying to make a show and entertain people. And, I certainly would welcome any sort of input from content creators of, are they okay with, you know what I feel like this should be? We should get to the point of kind of like the way radio stations are with the ASCAP license. Like, you pay a small fee and you have the rights to every song ever done. And then the artists get paid. Everybody gets paid. It's all fair and above board. I think it should be something like that. Like, Mr. Lawler, would you be okay with, say, paying like $10 a year to use any video clip that you want to use for anything in any way? Would you be okay with that?
I would probably be okay with it, but
Yeah,
the problem is what happens when you start making money. That's the problem. Is if you're making money off of it,
like all the things on our things, all the the notices on my page say basically that they've monetized it, which means if we get a certain amount of viewers,
they get paid.
Any money is made, it goes to them,
yeah.
not us.
Yeah.
So we're basically a commercial for them.
Okay, this is a subject that I've been wanting to talk about forever, and I never seem to be able to get it in. I'm going to get it in on this one. Crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and Kickstarter scams, and also generally stuff that you see being released that it seems to me is not being financed by the people who are making it, but rather by people who are pre-ordering it. And the main one that I'd mention is the Monkeys Blu-ray box set. Now, my wife is an enormous Monkeys fan, and a year ago they announced the release of what would be a Blu-ray box set of all the Monkeys television episodes into this package, and they were charging $200 for it. And now, first, it's 2 seasons, less than 100 episodes, and the episodes were available on DVD for a long time anyway. So the only thing they could really be possibly offering would be to clean up of the negatives and then high definition scan and then putting it out on Blu-ray. What disturbed me about this was that no product was being offered until orders were being put in, and then they claimed it was a limited edition thing. The project was delayed by several months. I mean, like, I think altogether maybe 6 or 7 months. It was my suspicion at the time that they were using people's pre-order money to actually produce the box set, rather than, and this is Rhino, and Rhino kind of does this kind of stuff. They kind of get into this weird crowdsourcing thing, but they don't call it crowdsourcing. So I feel like they're doing this sort of like in an on-demand kind of way, like how the Warner Archive does. But the thing about it is, I'm not spending $200 for a Blu-ray of Wolfen on the promise that they're going to make it. They make it, they get the money, they make it, or whatever. It's an on-demand situation, whatever that is. I felt it was a bit scammy. And what's more, when the packages finally did ship 7 months late, they were shipped badly, and a lot of them came in damaged. And then Rhino stops picking up their phone to answer complaints. And I always thought that was a problem. And in addition to that, the crowdfunding that goes on, generally what happens is if you invest in a product, then you should be entitled to revenue from sales of that product. And crowdfunding and Kickstarter were not really they weren't making that clear. Now Kickstarter seems to be involved in this thing where they're pursuing legal action so that people can make money from anything they invest in, because when you're investing in something, you should be entitled to the profits, because a lot of times people are putting up products there that they want to manufacture or make, and they need money from crowdsourcing, and then it turns out that it was all a scam and they're just sitting back counting money and living off of it or something like that. So it seemed like there was a lot of treachery involved when it came to investing in a product, and I think the Monkeys Blu-ray box set is one of them.
Perhaps they consulted with Charles Band.
Well, actually, in my neck of the woods, there actually have been 2 situations like that have already arisen. One of them involving Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Really?
There was it wasn't a crowdfunding thing, so to speak. This German company, I can't tell you who they were. They had announced that they got the negative for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and they were going to put it out on a Digibook Blu-ray, and they were taking pre-orders. And then all of a sudden, they canceled the release. What had ended up happening was that this company was taking all the pre-order money, and they were using all that money to finance the project.
Yes.
And when they did not get enough money to pay for the negative scan, to pay for the cleanup, they had to cancel it because they didn't have enough money to get the film out of hock.
They couldn't get the rights or something.
They had the rights. They just couldn't pay. They couldn't pay for the scan. They couldn't pay for the copies to be pressed.
Wow.
Like they did not make enough money. They were literally relying on the money from the pre-orders because this wasn't one of those where, you know how when you order on Amazon, they don't charge your card until it ships.
Right.
You know, this was one of those, we're taking your money right now.
Right.
And
did they refund the money? Did they refund the money?
They did refund the money. Everybody I've talked to about this whole situation, they got their money back. Now me, I was having no part of it. I said, you know what? When I usually don't get anything, this is from a company I've never even heard of. I'm like, you know what? I'm not spending any money on this until this sucker gets released. You know, and then
coincidentally, I would say Elvira was also handled by Rhino at one point.
Well, yes, and you are right because I do have an Elvira the Wasp Woman on VHS, and that is a Rhino tape. But in the case of the movie, that's kind of like it's a rights issue. Like Elvira holds half the rights, like Cassandra Peterson, holds half the rights.
Yes,
and then Lakeshore / New World Pictures owns the other half.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess the upshot of this is now that this German company is not going to do it, Arrow can do it because Arrow owns the Lakeshore catalog and they can easily put this out on both sides.
Now, I assume I will not have this problem if I order that edition of Suspiria from Synapse Films. Like, I assume I'll have no problem with that, right?
No, you will never have a problem with Synapse. It's just the thing is, I know David Lawler. I know you know about Don May Jr. I know you know about Don May Jr.
Yeah.
Well, Don May Jr. Again, he was the original owner. Him and Vinny Bancalari. I've never mentioned his name.
Vinny
Bancalari. Vinny Bancalari. Those were both the original co-owners of Elite Entertainment. You know, they did the VHS releases and Laserdisc releases.
Yes.
Don May's current partner. Now, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. He did not see eye to eye with Vinny. His partner basically said, look, Don, I want to work with you. I don't want to work with Vinny. So you want to partner up with me? We'll create a new company and we'll start buying up film rights and we'll start releasing stuff.
Right.
That's where Synapse Entertainment came into play.
Okay.
You know, but the thing is with Don May, I was getting a little off track. Don May likes to take his time. Like, Popcorn just came out on Blu-ray.
Popcorn.
Yes.
Jill Scholen, right?
That was with, what's her name? Dee Wallace was in that.
Dee Wallace, okay.
Dee Wallace. It took him about 5 years to finish it.
So he really does prefer to take his time on these things, yeah.
Because the reason was, one of the big holdups was Sony still had the rights to it. He was trying to get the original 2-track stereo magnetic tracks. He wanted the original audio mix. He didn't want something that was a second or third generation. He wanted the original mix. That's what took the release so long.
Okay, so these materials are bouncing all over the world. You have to track them down. You have to find them. And a lot of times these materials don't even survive. They'll be destroyed. Exactly. They'll be destroyed by, well, nowadays we're in a more of a preservationist kind of a kick. This started, I think, with Laserdiscs, where it was obvious that it was really difficult to find this stuff, and we're trying to remaster. We're trying to put together a new package. Nowadays, we're seeing more of this kind of archival stuff going on. But there are some, like David talked about it. There are some movies out there that we will never see because they are gone. They're gone. They're completely wiped out, destroyed.
The big one is the Alamo, the original Roadshow version. You'll never see that again.
Yes.
I mean, the movie isn't great to begin with. Okay. I mean, I don't like the movie a lot, but as a film buff, I do think it sucks that the original Roadshow version, the elements are completely deteriorated.
Yeah.
And they can't be saved. And it's a crying shame. Because all movies, no matter how bad or good they are, they should still have a chance to survive. And it's just a crying shame that work, that it was the Duke's grand opus. He wanted to make that movie. He loved everything about it. It's just sad that a John Wayne film, a John Wayne starred and directed film, cannot be preserved.
No, it can't.
Because nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cared at the time when it would have mattered. And film is you have to put it in like a special kind of vault to preserve it as much as you can. But even then, it still deteriorates.
Well, the same thing as the movie Day of the Dead. The mines that they shot in. Those mines are still used today. Those actually are where they preserve film. It's a good place to store film material because they won't deteriorate.
So yeah, with a lot of this kind of the scammy stuff that's going on, a lot of times Paul from VHS Collector will be posting videos about certain things that he buys, and he's not being given the full story from the distributors, and it seems like they do take the money and they run away, and then they finally make the product a lot of times. But I can understand like somebody like Don May spending 5 years to put together a popcorn soundtrack. I think he cares. I mean, some people actually care, and most people are in it for the money.
Oh yeah, he cares because like Suspiria is going to be coming out soon. He's been working on Suspiria for about 3 years now.
3 years. It's like a labor of love. It almost turns into
it is because
it's been in the theaters before it's getting on Blu-ray. I almost caught it. It was in my local theater, and I didn't know until it was too late. I'm like, crap, I missed it.
Yeah, we actually just aired that. Chicago Music Box Theater actually just aired that or showed it out here. But the thing is, like, there's a difference between a film print and a home video presentation. And Don May wants it to be the absolute best home video presentation that you're ever going to get.
Right.
Like, he wants the color to be accurate. He wants the compression for the Blu-ray to be perfect where you can't see any compression artifacts. He wants the grain to be good, but he wants the cleanup to be good. Like, he is a perfectionist. And in his case, I can't argue that. I'm like, I will wait a few years because if you're going to give me the best product ever, hey, I'll take it.
So, but this is an on-demand product, right?
Oh, no. Synopse, they have a manufacturer.
No, they said that they say on the website, I think they say they have it's like a 6,000 limited run. I think that's what they said. And I kind of have the theory of the company that they're doing it through probably said, if you order 5, we'll give you an extra, we'll give you 6 or something like that.
They did this with the movie with Demons 1 and Demons 2. The first 5,000 were in steelbook format. And then you got the Blu-ray and DVD combo pack, and you got like this really cool extra swag. I pre-ordered those day one when they were announced because I love those movies. But they did eventually come out with a regular edition, but it did not have any swag and no special features. It was just the movie.
Mm.
There is one other situation that's going on right now. The Boondock Saints, Troy Duffy.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing his thing right now where he's basically begging people to contribute towards his Boondock Saints TV show. No product has come out. He has not started filming. He has not done anything. He is literally asking people to contribute to this Kickstarter just so he can get like 13 episodes of this TV show that doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah, and it remains debatable whether or not it would even sell, really. I mean, the Boondock Saints is such the story behind the Boondock Saints is far more interesting.
I know. I mean, we go back to your Blockbuster days. When I worked at Blockbuster, that was a Blockbuster exclusive title.
Yeah.
And that's how I first gained exposure was by renting it on a videotape when I was working at Blockbuster. And I loved the movie, and I have seen the movie Overnight, which chronicles the making of Boondock Saints, showing how much of a douche waffle Troy Duffy is,
and also how much of a douche Harvey Weinstein is.
Oh yeah.
Did you hear? I mean, like I loved his yelling back and forth, "Fuck you" conversations with Harvey Weinstein.
It was bad. I mean, both of them. It was just like two giant egos going back and forth, but only one of them had the right to have a giant ego.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Like Duffy had this ego. It's like, dude, you're a first-time filmmaker, a first-time screenwriter. You don't have an ego, okay? Yeah, you got this thing handed to you on a silver platter. I wouldn't have an ego. I'd be grateful.
Oh man, I would. Not only would I allow Harvey to masturbate in front of me, I would assist.
Exactly. I'd give him a reach around.
Come over here, Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for the amount of money that I could be making, I mean, life in general, even without that kind of stuff, is humiliating and disgusting and weird. It wouldn't mess me up, at least not now, not as an adult. I'd be like, you know what? Just another shitty thing that I got to do to get things done. I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever.
His ego just got so much in the way, and then you guys are talking about franchise pictures,
right?
That's where he had to go to get the funding. Like, I think he originally had, it was a $6 million or somewhere into whether 6 or 10 million that Miramax was going to kick in, and then it got busted down to 2 million.
But then franchise probably say it cost 150 million.
Yeah, probably. Like they padded that budget like crazy.
All right.
And then you feel even worse about the distributor Indican, who only ran it in 5 theaters.
Yeah. So you're saying that Duffy is now doing this kind of crowdfunding thing for a Boondocks TV show?
Duffy is asking for money for something that doesn't exist.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, it's like, what, that it could work as a TV show, I guess. Now that I think about it,
it could. I mean, he's already stated it's a prequel. It's going to show the lives of Connor and Murphy McManus. It's going to show them as young kids leading up to the events of the first movie.
Well, sometimes these crowdfunding things are actually like totally legit. Like, remember they made the Veronica Mars movie?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that show, and I watched the movie, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Because I never watched the show. I'm like, I don't know what.
Yeah,
the hell's going on.
that was unusual. Bronwyn's a big Veronica Mars fan, and I read up on the history, and yeah, they crowdsourced the production. But I was so confused because what is the antipathy toward Rob Thomas, the guy who made it? That I mean, he had to fight and struggle to keep that show on the air for 3 seasons.
Oh,
and,
he did, yeah.
And it seemed like there was just nothing but antipathy for him. I mean, like Warner Brothers stepped in to distribute the film once they got it made, but they did not. It's like they didn't really show any faith. Veronica Mars, at times, I mean, I watched it occasionally. It's kind of like a Buffy without supernatural stuff. It's just sort of a curious girl who's a kind of a part-time detective and everything, and it did have a good following, and they obviously managed to get the money to make the movie, but it was obviously a very low budget movie, so it wasn't.
I mean, it was, but I mean, a lot of the crowdfunders, everyone said their money went in the right place because it was successful.
Well, if they were happy about that, but the thing is,
Well,
what
it only had, like,
happens when you invest the money in the movie? You do not see the profit, though, do you? I mean, as far as I know,
the way I see it, I invested in the reboot of MST3K.
Oh.
I invested in that. And you know what? That's money well spent, because they gave me 14 or 15 episodes of entertainment, and as far as I'm concerned, my money went in the right place because I love the fact that the show's back, and I love what they've been doing with it.
well, I'm gonna be starting to run Mystery Science Theater because we're getting close to Turkey Day, so I like to run Mystery Science Theater episodes.
And wasn't it sort of a Netflix co-production? So it's going to be on Netflix pretty much forever.
It is the current series. Yes, it's on Netflix. Or like Netflix became the distributor for it. They got the rights after everybody spent all that money on it, and they got to film all the episodes. But yes, the reboot series is going to be completely on Netflix no matter what. But it's also a matter of rights issues for the original shows that aired on Comedy Central and Sci-Fi.
Okay, we're going to move on to the controversial topic that we still are talking about. And we all know what that is. It's Ease On Down the Road, The Wiz. Now, I had to cut out this conversation. Me and David did talk at length about The Wiz for the MCA Universal episode, but I had to cut it out because we didn't really have any information. And everything I was reading is incredibly contradictory. I mean, what it was that the Wiz, all right, it was a movie that came out in 1978. Obviously, it's a version of The Wizard of Oz starring Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, and people like Lena Horne, directed by Sidney Lumet. It was not a popular movie at the time of release. It was kind of an enormous flop, actually. But it does play on television. We know this for a fact. Did it premiere in 1981, David?
Yes, in fact, I was telling you about this earlier today. I'm gonna say early '81 because I had a Zenith beta machine, and we recorded it, and I would watch it over and over again because we only had like 3 tapes. So we just would watch stuff over again. It was that and the movie, that and the movie The End with Burt Reynolds. I remember that.
The End. Oh my God, I loved the
great movie.
I loved his existential comedies that he did in the early '80s, like that and Paternity and things like that.
Speech of like, please God, make me a good swimmer.
So it was 1981. This thing premiered, right?
It was on CBS, and you could probably. I'm gonna just pull out of my ass. You could probably go on YouTube and find the CBS promo for when it was on. It was also on, I think, in early 1984.
Yeah, it was, but the information on The Wiz is incredibly.
It was also on cable. It was also, I remember it was on HBO. I know it was on HBO probably early on, like after it came out, because I remember looking in the TV section, like in say like 1980, 79.
Yeah.
And it's saying The Wiz was on. I'm like, oh, The Wiz is on. I want to see The Wiz.
See, now somebody needs to go to the Wikipedia page and edit it because there's a couple of errors here because it says it was first broadcast on May 5th, 1984. Which is obviously not true.
No, it was way before then. I know. That might have been the second. That might have been the second time it was on.
Maybe the second time, because 1981 makes sense, considering it came out in 1978.
78. I remember because I was in another house.
It's not a risk. It's good for the production company. Get it on television. Maybe they were forward thinking in a way, but not many people were forward thinking, at least in the industry back then. Now, the only other information I could find was that it was released on. Home video. It was released first. It was a DiscoVision title in 1981. It was a DiscoVision title.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the information. It was a 2-disc set with the movie running on 3 sides, and it was pressed in Pioneer's Japan warehouse.
So it's probably a good pressing then, I'd be guess.
Yeah,
halfway decent, because there's a few Pioneer Japan pressings that are just like bad.
well, it says here in the notes that they messed up some of the frame toward the end of the movie where Diane Ross is singing "Home," the song "Home," and they said they messed up her face, and when it zooms in to her face or something, a part of her head disappears out of the frame. So that was the pan and scan edition, and that was the only one that was available on Laserdisc until 1993.
Yeah, it might have been some sort of thing where they used a theatrical print that was like it was probably shot open frame, open matte, whatever you want to call it. But then they used some sort of theatrical print that was matted for theatrical, and then they panned and scanned within that.
Yeah.
So that might have been what messed it up.
Yeah,
when they did the other, when they tried to do the next version, they opened it up. They used the actual like camera negative or something, and it was okay.
Like I said, I can't really talk about The Wiz because I wasn't around when that came out, but I swear that movie was shot 235.
No, it says 185 to 1. It was
Really?
It was Panavision cameras. It wasn't even anamorphic or anything. No, it was.
Man, I don't remember it looking weird. I mean, I remember it being, like I said, HBO on cable, but I didn't watch it. Then it was on TV, so it's like 81-ish.
But there were 70 millimeter prints that were also released when it came out.
Well, that makes sense. They probably had some sort of stereo 70 millimeter mix.
Yeah, 6-track.
And then it was on. I remember it being on HBO and Showtime again, like say like 83, 84, something like that. I remember it was probably right after that.
Probably just seems like it's a widescreen movie just for that, just because of the scope of it.
It's a big movie.
It's probably like the Beatles' Let It Be, to where it was shot open matte and then it was theatrically exhibited in 185. But then when they did it to home video, they did the home video conversion.
They just yeah.
That's what I said. Yeah, they
zoomed that sucker in.
Within they zoomed in. I mean, they've done that with a few movies. I remember I had Life of Brian. That was like one of those things that was on Warner Home Video, and I remember it being, because I got the later Laserdisc release that's open matte, and there's lots of scenes, like especially when there's a scene when the guy's saying Jehovah and he's being stoned, and he's like, just saying Jehovah, and they're throwing him. And then John Cleese in the original Warner tape, if you can find it, he's like pointing his now I'm going to tell you this right now, absolutely clear. And you see him pointing his arm, but all you see is his arm. Like you don't see him, and it's this weird sort of like truncated picture. Whereas on the open map, it's way opened up on the top and bottom on the sides. Right. It just looks better.
The both of you have sent me pictures of the video cassettes that were allegedly released, and I only say allegedly because I think there might have been issues here. They were my guess is Laserdisc had already been packaged and shipped out, ready for sale, and went on sale. And I don't know if this is true. Is it possible that Laserdiscs were released before video cassettes came out of a movie?
Yes.
I mean, is it possible?
Of this, yes. Of this, probably yes.
They would.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
It was a disco vision. They kind of like would.
You would think that they would release it all together, VHS, Beta, Laserdisc, all together, and pick your format.
I think in the early days of Disco Vision, it was kind of like, hey, we have our own format. Although if it was a 1981 release, that was near the end of them trying to sort of get it together and be Disco Vision until they finally sold the whole thing to Pioneer and let them do it.
Yeah.
It's weird. You would have a Universal film would be a Disco Vision release, and then everything else would be like an MCA home video, like the VHS, the Beta. That was like MCA home video. They're almost separate things.
Or in this case, in '81, it's MCA Video Cassette Incorporated. That was when, and then they switched over to MCA. They became MCA Home Video in 1983.
And it'd be like this, and then there was sort of in between stage between everything kind of coming out on its own package of. It said like MCA Video Disc Inc. And it was this special. It had like a sort of a bar, like you can catch like these.
Yeah, I got that right in the upper left hand corner.
Yeah, and it'd be like there, and that was kind of its own thing for a little while. But then eventually, everything was sort of consolidated. It would just sort of look. It would look a little spaced out, a little different because it was a different shape.
And
they all say like MCA Home Video.
And this is when John shared a rather bizarre picture. That I've seen before. It was the Wiz on Beta, right? Mm-hmm. But it says MCA Video Cassette Incorporated on the box and MCA Home Video on the label. So,
I'm gonna look
and
at
that's
it
from
again.
1983.
Now, I was talking to Mr. Anderson about this one last night. Now, it was not uncommon for Universal, and this is later era Universal as well, to package an older cassette in with a newer box. Now, case in point, I recently got a copy of Halloween 2 on VHS.
Okay.
And the outer slip box says MCA Universal, but the actual cassette itself just says MCA.
And these, okay, now you have these physical products. They don't look new or anything, like, right? They look authentic.
They're authentic. I mean, the same thing happened with Phantasm 2. I picked up a copy of Phantasm 2. It said MCA Universal on the side. When you took the tape out, it just said MCA on it.
These seem to be like flaws, and flaws are rarities, and they would be worth quite a bit of money then. Can I tell you, this has nothing to do with movies. It's Van Halen's 1984 album.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, Van Halen made the album 1984. It has a song Jump on it. It's a big hit, right? I have a Canadian printing of this record, and the back cover is printed upside down.
Oh, wow.
That makes it extremely valuable just for that flaw.
I actually have a flaw myself. I have the first 4 Metallica albums on vinyl.
Okay.
And these are all original pressings. I'm talking Megaforce for the first 2.
Right.
I have
right.
original pressings of these.
Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning in particular, on the back cover, it says "For Whom the Bells Toll."
Oh, I got to check mine. Wait, was this on a...
Yes.
Oh, these are vinyl, right?
Yeah, this is vinyl. The original Megaforce pressing from 1984.
Okay, because I have like the original compact disc of Ride the Lightning. So I got... that was like one of the first CDs I ever bought. Metalheads.
And the original Master of Puppets vinyl, even though Metallica had signed with Elektra at that point, the original Master of Puppets actually has the Megaforce logo.
Still has the Megaforce logo on it? Oh.
Yeah,
okay, those...
it has a tiny little Megaforce logo on the rear of the jacket near the corner.
All right, you got yourself a college education for your daughter there. You just bought that.
Oh, believe me, when I purged my vinyl collection, I kept those.
Oh yeah.
I would never get rid of those.
Yeah, it happens, and that's the thing is, you correct those flaws immediately and put out a new issue. I don't think that MCA cared enough about this movie at the time. Maybe, and one of my theories, because I have the different photographs. One says 1981, another one says 1983. The Laserdisc comes out in 1981. You're assuming that a product was manufactured in 1981 and possibly remanufactured for MCA home video in 1983. Something happened, and because I had never personally, in my experience, just in my experience only, I'm telling you two gentlemen, I have never seen a videotape of The Wiz. Physically, I've never seen a videotape of it.
I have, and I have my story of like seeing it in a national video store.
Right.
And it was a don't let this happen to your tape, and it was
that
sort of in a case, and the tape was like splayed out like broken tape, and it was a copy of The Wiz. That's promotional though. That seems to be a promotional thing. And I said, why is this popular movie being ruined? And that might be why, because maybe it was a promo tape.
Yeah, and the other picture that John sent me it looked like it was part of a promotional giveaway. This one looks more accurate to me because the MCA video cassette incorporated logo is on both the tape and the box, but it also comes with this kind of a video cassette catalog, a little video cassette catalog. So this might have been a promotional item that was sent out. But also, The Wiz, the title itself, The and Wiz, The is on top of Wiz, whereas on other tapes I've seen, The Wiz is all written out in one word on one line. So that is also a strange incongruity there, like this tape here from 1983. Now this one from I can't make it out. I think that might be 1981. I'm not sure on that first.
If it was the VHS that I sent you recently, it was the 81.
Well, no, this looks like beta.
Oh, the beta.
These both look like betas to me. I'm not sure about the other one, but if you saw that and it was part of a promotional thing, like don't let this happen to your tape or something like that, it was like, we got all these junk whizzes that we can't sell, so let's just make them part of some kind of a package. But I never saw it until at least until the 1989 MCA Universal videotape. that was put out.
They figured out whatever the rights of who needs to get paid for what, I guess.
Well, this was my theory. My theory was Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy had a very tense relationship with Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, because of his popularity with the Jackson 5, instead of re-signing with Motown, they move over to Epic, and I think Berry Gordy was pissed off about that.
Yeah.
Jermaine Jackson remained at Motown, but still.
I'm looking here at the Blu-ray right now that you could buy, and it's only $9.47 on Amazon.
Wow.
And it says right on the thing, it says The Wiz, and then right under it, it says a Motown production.
It says a Motown production. Isn't that interesting? Because Motown, it was its own independently operated company out of Michigan.
Now I think it is a part of Universal.
It might it might just be.
I think MCA bought them at some point. That's probably how they were able to figure out the rights of like, well, we own it. So
do you think maybe they bought Motown to get The Wiz? Because think about it now. In 1978, Michael Jackson was a pop star, but he wasn't the king of pop. He exploded in the 80s. He became the enormous, and everybody.
The Wiz is always going to be a niche.
Everybody wanted a piece of Michael, though. Everybody wanted a piece of him and wanted to make money from him.
I don't think they did it to buy the Wiz. Now, you get Motown Records. You buy Motown Records. You're buying Motown Records. You're buying the Jackson 5. You're buying all the other cool stuff that they did over the years that I can't sing off the top of my head.
Well, yes, that's also true. Now, as far as Epic was Columbia Records, right?
Yes,
that was Columbia.
I think when they did that, they turned away, and that's Berry Gordy getting pissed off because his cash machine is no longer with him anymore, and he might have held up the rights. There might have been distribution. I'm only speculating.
Well, you got to remember the reason is because it was all because of Joe, Michael Jackson's father,
right?
Because he wanted to go with the best company that would treat his kids the best. And to be honest, everybody got tired of doing bubblegum music that they didn't write themselves.
Right.
You got to remember, none of the Jackson 5 stuff on the Motown label was written by any of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was all prearranged stuff. And even when they moved to Epic, this is of course Jermaine. He stayed with Motown.
Yes.
Mainly because he was married to Berry Gordy's daughter.
Yes. At the time,
the first
he was their Andy Gibb.
Going Places was the Jacksons, that was their first album, and that was written by Gamble and Huff. It wasn't until they did the second album is when they finally got to do their own thing. No more, restrictiveness, no more, we're going to hold you under a freaking microscope, we're going to put our thumbs over you, we're going to finally let you guys do your own thing. And they were fine. Motown would have never let them do that. And you got to give Michael and you got to give, everybody else credit. They did the right thing. He always thought, Michael had said this on his deathbed, that Berry Gordy was always like a father to him. Even though they were at odds and they had their friction, he always thought of him like the father he never had.
Yeah, and Joe most definitely was not, yeah.
Yeah, he loved Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy, in spite of the bubblegum music, he did a lot for the Jackson 5. So Michael Jackson probably did The Wiz as like a huge, huge favor to Berry. Even though they were kind of at odds at the time, he still did it as a favor.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Jackson, because if this came out in 78, so off the Wall is Epic, and that comes out I think in 79. So he probably does. This is probably his last hurrah with Motown. It'd be my guess.
Well, no, actually, the Wiz was his last Motown hurrah until you get to Motown 25. Which was
he comes on
five
that,
years later.
yeah. Probably
but then,
I guess,
Epic was, Off the Wall was the very first Epic album that he ever did, with that company.
Yeah.
With Thriller, it was about timing. The entire success of that record was timing. It was because MTV had just broken out.
Yeah.
All this stuff. If not for MTV, that album would have never been as popular.
That album came out in 83, and you said you were like 1 when that came out?
It came out in November of 1982. Right, but it was right at the cutoff of the Grammys, to where, because you got to remember, Thriller won all the awards in 1984. You'd figure, why wouldn't it win in 1983? It was because it was released at the cutoff period.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Grammy.
Because I was there, because I was like 72, so I would have been like 11 and 12 when I got it for my birthday when I turned 12 in 1983, and then of course then later you get the Making Michael Jackson Thriller Restaurant, VHS, that pretty much put them on the map.
66 million copies sold worldwide so far. Is it still more than it's always
Eagles?
neck and neck with Eagles' greatest hits. It's always neck and neck with it.
It has surpassed it.
The Eagles is number 6 on the list. It's actually
it went down a little
Thriller, AC/DC's Back in Black, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard, Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, The Eagles, their greatest hits, Bee Gees, Saturday Night Fever, and Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
That's a good list, but you can take out the Bodyguard soundtrack.
Yeah, you can. You can most assuredly take it out. Although,
I mean, I don't care what anyone says about disco, man. I love me the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, and I love that movie.
Any chance we could take this and segue into our final segment and have it how is Phil Collins Against All Odds on there? What's out on the list, huh?
Well, it's not on the list. Against All Odds. Let me see. No.
As far as singles, it's got to be up there. I'm gonna guess because that's a huge song.
That was a big one.
It's huge.
I also want to mention once again Michael Jackson, not only a pioneer in music but a pioneer in video. For no reason whatsoever, other than that he wanted to transform into a monster, he makes the Thriller video with John Landis, and it winds up being the explosion of video sell-through.
I remember watching that Thriller when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I rented it from the local library. I loved how he said that he saw American Werewolf in London, and he loved how the transition effects when David Naughton turned into the werewolf. And he said, I want to work with John Landis and Rick Baker.
Yes. Yeah.
He goes, I want to work with these two guys, and I want to do something that nobody's ever done before. It took me a while to get that Laserdisc, but I actually have the Vestron digital sound Laserdisc.
Oh, that is awesome. That is,
Thriller.
Man, is it in good condition?
It initially came out in stereo CX, but the digital version's probably kind of rare, isn't it?
It is stupid rare, and I actually traded a friend of mine on the LDF page for that, and he didn't care. He wasn't a big Michael Jackson fan. But just to have that digital sound version in my hand it meant everything to me. Like, if you can't tell, like when I was a kid in the '90s, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I still am to this day.
He was one of the rare. He was one of the rare talents that transcended all genres, and people loved him. They just loved him.
I just wish to this day Captain EO would come out on home video. I would love for that to come out again. I mean, I actually got to go to Disney World and see it, and then I remember. In 1996, when it only aired on TV one time, on MTV on a Sunday night, and I actually recorded a copy.
Well, it will eventually come out once his relatives are done, fighting over his bones and all the lawsuits and all that stuff. Okay, I'm out of things to talk about. Is there anything else anybody wanted to contribute?
Okay, I'll say thank you, Mr. Froelich, for coming on our show and discussing this. I'm glad. I think you had said, hey, if you wanna have me on on your show, can I come on? And I said, well, I'll check with Lawler and see if he's okay with it. But I'd have no problem with it. I like having people coming on. Had a nice conversation with you last night. That I think it went a little too long, but we went for 2 hours. We ended up going for 2 hours, mostly just talking about Laserdiscs and stuff and certain douchey people. And it's nice to have you on. It's always nice to have sort of a fellow sort of film nut voice with his own sort of information from his sort of corner of the world. And it's always good to share ideas about, and share experiences. It's so interesting. We're like Lawler and I are around the same age, but you're like a good 10, 11 years younger than us, and yet you seem to have the same general experience, and that's always good that we can all get along. I think that's good.
And the great part about growing up with a I don't want to use the term obsessive mother, but I led a very sheltered life, and my escape was the movies.
Same here.
That was my escape. I was one of those kids who was picked on a lot. My mom never really let me out of the house because I had asthma and all this other stuff. I mean, my dad, he was the cool one. He let me go out. Eventually, my mom, let go of the grip a little bit, but still, my escape was always in cinema. And I became, just like a walking bask of cinematic knowledge, But it's just really been cool to know that Facebook has been like the place to find people who share that same love that you do. And that's how I found your guys' little thing. And, the one thing I wanted to do was be a part of it, because it's just like, wow, these guys know exactly what I'm about. I mean, it's like one of my favorite episodes that you did was the United Artists one. And especially when you talked about Heaven's Gate.
Yeah,
that was a lot of work. That was a lot of work. Was
that what got you inspired to get that tape? Did you get the tape and hear our show, or did you hear our show and then get the tape? Like, how did that work?
I had heard your show, And then after that, I immediately popped on my Laserdisc and I wanted to watch it because I had not seen it in so long. And then you and I were talking that one night. We were talking about how I got, this REO Speedwagon long box VHS of Live Infidelity. And then I decided to look up Heaven's Gate on eBay, and I saw that long box copy. And it was like in pristine condition.
Yeah, and then
and
you
I,
told
and
me
I, and I had to get it.
It ended up being even better because it's sort of an older cassette case. It was brand new. It was sealed. It was an older cassette case, but it had a newer tape in it, so it's like in full VHS hi-fi stereo.
Yep, full stereo. And that was what I was going to tell you, Mr. Lawler. Like, again, companies did do that from time to time where it was not advertised as hi-fi, and occasionally you got that hi-fi tape in the case.
That's unusual.
And that happened with my Heaven's Gate. I mean, it's long box. It says nothing about. It says it's stereo on Dolby stereo on linear tracks.
Yeah.
But then you pop in the tape, and it's hi-fi stereo.
Or as in the case of Shock Treatment with me, advertised as hi-fi stereo, but just a muddy mono mix that was on the
muddy,
tape.
wobbly sound. Yeah.
Then we go back to video treasures. You know how many quote-unquote hi-fi stereo video treasures tapes I bought, and they were just like the Good Times tapes, and they were in crappy LP, mono.
You have to crank it up to 10 just to hear anything.
Just to hear anything, and those were the rough days. Those were the bad days. But Echo Bridge keeps it alive. The worst DVD Blu-ray company imaginable. I mean, hey, we go back to the era to where we have a crappy LP tape with no sound. Nowadays, we have a company that decides to put 4 movies on one DVD.
Yeah, I have one of those actually. I bought it at Rite Aid, right like a block away from my house. They had 4 movies on it, and I only wanted one. I only wanted the Phantom of the Opera Dario Argento uncut version, and it was on it with 3 other movies that I never even heard of.
So, is this on one disc or
all on? I have it right here, and it is Source 1. It says Source 1 Entertainment, Phantom of the Opera, uncut, Minotaur, something called Minotaur, a movie called Wicked Ways with Michael Rooker and Rebecca De Mornay, and a movie called The Fourth Floor with William Hurt.
Jeez.
And I'm gonna take the shrink wrap off here. This is another thing. The thing about DVDs, what I hate still is the stupid sticker on the top. I hate that sticker on the top. You can't open the thing. Whereas with Blu-rays, you can just pretty much just rip the shrink wrap off and they open. It's so much easier.
That's what you gotta love about VHS. You just had to rip the cellophane off, pop out the tape, and you were good to go.
Yeah, and what's more, you don't have this problem that you have now with on-demand and all that stuff. Oh, bloody hell. Okay, it's 2 discs. Yeah, it's 2 discs. The name of the company is Source One, which I've never heard of, but it seems to be a combination of 2 companies, New Image and Millennium.
Okay, yep. That's Avi Arad has something to do with Millennium Entertainment, I believe.
That name, I know that name. What is it?
He worked with Seagal back in the day. Like he produced a lot of stuff for I want to say Carolco. He did a lot of Carolco stuff.
Okay, all right.
And then he basically adopted the Carolco philosophy, but he did it for budget constraints, and that's where Millennium Entertainment came in.
Oh, all right. Oh, I hate this. Okay, there we go. Now it's off. Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what? I think I'm gonna probably take a look at this because they look like. Okay, what I like about them is they look like horror. They look like old school horror exploitation movies. So I'm gonna take a look at them, but they're all full frame.
Well, then you're not gonna lose too much on the compression because using a full frame transfer in a DVD takes less compression than an actual 1/7/8 to 1 transfer.
But this is the main selling point. They were $5, and with my Rite Aid discount, they came out to like $3 and change.
Oh wow!
So I got a good deal on that. All right. If there's not anything else, let's wrap it up. What do you say?
All right, that's fine with me. I think we did a great show. I think
you're probably getting hungry right now.
Oh, I'm starving.
Yeah.
This we're doing a great. We've done a great show. We've done a great series. I think we've talked about everything we can talk about. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff we've forgotten.
Yeah, please send me angry emails or
Well, they're gonna go to me because these go up on my YouTube page.
Yeah. Or take my profile picture and defile it again.
Yeah, no. But I think that we're doing a great series. Of course, Mr. Lawler will take all this raw information and edit together a genius show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Froelich, would you like to do you have any final words?
I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet swan song. It's like, been wanting to get on this, and out of all the shows I wanted to be on, I had to be on the last one. But at the same time, I'm happy that I got to be a part of it, and I'm really appreciative of what you guys do. And I'm really just glad that I got to be a part of it one last time. But hopefully, we can all collaborate on something in the near future.
I'm hoping. It's pretty much up to Mr. Lawler.
We're gonna have to pick a topic.
If he doesn't want to do anything, maybe I'll just do something with you, and we'll dance off naked into the sunset.
Lord of the Fly style.
What do I have to say? Well, no thanks to Exploitation Films and Random Nut of Trash, Laserdisc Forever, Talking Films, and other Facebook groups who deleted our posts seconds after they were posted. You know who you are. The weirdos who removed and blocked me. The very stupid people who doctored profile pictures and made obscene remarks about my cat. I just want to say, fuck you. Anyway. Other than that, this is something I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and I didn't know how we were going to do it, and we wound up doing something that kind of changed the format of podcasting as we know it, because we have taken the podcast and turned it into a video presentation. So it's a multimedia presentation that now other people are starting to copy, and it's becoming more than a podcast and less than a television show. It's somewhere in the middle. It's this uncomfortable ground, but it's been incredibly, it's been fantastic for me. I've had so much fun editing these shows and putting them together, and I really want to edit more. I want to do more of this kind of work, and
hopefully I'll be involved in that.
But what needs to be central to it is the visual quality of it, and that's why we were able to put movie clips in and pictures and have little bits of music and all that stuff. So. That's what's really mattered to me. I'm really grateful that you guys have joined me for this, especially David, who's been with me for this 14 episodes of this as part of
this, and we've done other stuff too.
And then the other stuff, anything that's has a certain unique or exceptional quality to it, and that's what we talk about. And hopefully next year we'll talk about Bad Ronald if I can find a copy of it somewhere.
Well, I'll help you find it. I think I can get you a link. We'll watch it from the internet or something. I'll find it for you.
I really want to see that because it looks fantastic.
It is. In fact, in worst case scenario, it's a Warner archive. You can just buy it for like $15 or something.
Oh wow, I think I might actually go ahead and do that. But this is the end of the season for Two Davids Walking to a Barn in Edition. We have to go back to our other stuff. We have so many other things cooking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we literally have stuff cooking. I mean, Thanksgiving is coming up. There's going to be family stuff that we're all going to have to deal with. So we all kind of have to recharge, get super pissed off at our family, come back refreshed.
Yes. We should all just start laughing. Everyone start laughing. Oh, I'm sorry you missed that. Okay.
But forget anything else. Remember, Brogan, you're out of her life.
Figure that's up to her. You're not going to control us forever. Believe me.
How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave without a trace. When I stand here taking every breath with you. Ooh, you're the only one who really knew me at all. How can you just walk away from me when all I can do is watch you leave? 'Cause we've shared the laughter and the pain, and even shared the tears. You're the only one who really knew me at all. So take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. There's nothing left here to remind me. Just the memory of your face. Oh, take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. And you coming back
I end every episode with Beck doing his song "High Five, Rock the Catskills." So I think each of us should take a turn saying, "Turn that shit off." Yeah, just you. Go ahead.
Turn that shit off.
Turn that shit off. What's the matter with you?
Okay, it's turn that shit off. What's wrong with you, man? Get the other record.
What's wrong with you, man? Get that other record.
Damn.
I'm going potty. You want to hold my dick?